I needed a way to organize my hand gouges and smaller knives that I use quite frequently. I actually have 6 of these palm gouges, but I'm missing one right now and I can't find it. So I'm taking that into account when I do my measurements. And I think I came to 9.5 inches was a good distance. So I am using some maple that I had on hand, cutting it, and I ended up cutting 3 boards at this length. And as I'll explain later, there's a bit of a design flaw. I should have done it a little differently. But here's the overall design. There will be holes in that shelf to accept the palm gouges and the knives. And then I'm going to drill some smaller holes into the side for my punches that I use. So on the table saw here, I am creating a rabbet on the ends of the boards, making the first cut here. And then I did not have a zero clearance insert, so I put a piece of plywood down, got the right distance away, and then came up through and used this piece of plywood as my zero clearance, and it worked really well. I used this push stick in kind of a neat configuration here, but I felt very safe doing this, and my fingers were several inches away from the blade. Used my table saw sled to cut the dados. I don't have a dado stack, so I had to make multiple passes in order to create the dado here. And then I had to drill my holes into the shelf. And that's the right size bit. I can't remember what size I used right now, but in multiple holes. I did end up with some blowout on the back side, which I wasn't too happy about. But I did sand the top side, and I'll show you later what I used to fix that bottom side. Here I screwed a 2x4 at an angle so that I can cut the angle of where the handle is on the Caddy, and then more sanding here. Lots of sanding in these projects. So then I glued up the main area. Here's that shelf again, and I just took a gouge and actually accentuated the blowout to make it look like I carved this. People aren't going to see it anyway, but if they do, now it looks like like I meant to do it. And I learned from that mistake, and it's easy to prevent blowout. I just didn't have it clamped firmly enough. So I only needed 3 clamps here to glue this up, and then wipe off the squeeze out. And here's the setup for gluing up the side pieces. I used 2 spring clamps on the back, and I just did some butt joints. But here's where my design flaw is. As you can see, because I had 2 rabbets in there, I don't have much material on that supporting piece going up and down. What I should have done is used a longer board on the bottom and just done rabbets in those places like I did here, and it would have been a much stronger piece. In the end, it's going to be strong enough, but it just doesn't look nice. But that's okay. I'm going to be gluing on this board on the front and back anyway, so nobody will see that design flaw. But if I make another one, or if you decide to make one, you'll want to make that bottom board just longer and then do a dado in the correct spots. So I glued on these 1/4 inch oak pieces on the front and back. And then of course clamp those in while the glue dried. I used a 1-inch dowel for the handle, and here I am trying to figure out, I need to make some handle supports that come off the side. The handle will fold out of the way. I think I came up with 5.5 inches for the distance for those supports. I had some 1/4 inch oak laying around, so I glued 2 of those together so I could get a 1/2 inch board for those supports. So I glued and clamped those. And here, learning from my mistake before, I securely clamped another piece of maple on the back side to drill the holes. And then I drilled into the dowel as well. And I used my sawhorse here to hold it, and that worked really well for the most part. It did slip a little bit here, but overall this was much safer than holding it in my hand and trying to drill. And then I glued the 1/2 inch dowels into those holes I just drilled. This needed a little persuasion to get in. And I also did that on the dowels. And then here I just rounded over the ends of those handle supports on both ends. Used a cap as a guide. And then sanded it on my belt sander to the line. And that works really well. It's fast work of that. Then again, securely clamping it, I drilled holes in the appropriate places, 1/2 inch holes. And then I glued only at the top here, where the handle, where the supports meet the handle. I cut off the excess after it had dried. And where it's on the caddy, I left the dowels a little proud because it is not glued in, and I wanted to have a little room for movement. You can see here's the handle moves, and it can move out of the way. I can hold it, carry it, and then move it out of the way so I can remove the tools. So after a coat of my finish, here is what it looks like. I think I'll get a lot of use out of this, and I will be able to keep my tools much more organized. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support.